Hey everybody, I feel like I need to make this video now, even though it's not part of the series that I've been doing. We really may be in the season right now, and I want to show more proof of that by going over the 70 years in Jeremiah and the riddle of the 7 kings, because there's a strong possibility that the 70 years may actually refer to 1945 to 2015. Okay, so in the book of Jeremiah, we're given 2 different 70-year periods. One of those 70-year periods ended at Daniel, and the other 70-year period ends at the meteorite that destroys the beast. So in Jeremiah 29, the Lord says, "After 70 years be accomplished at Babylon, I will visit you. Then shall you call upon me, and you shall go and pray unto me, and I will hearken unto you." And then after that, sometime later, it doesn't say how long, but after that it says, "I will bring you again into the place whence I caused you to be carried away captive." Okay, so it tells us that Jeremiah wrote this in the first year of King Nebuchadnezzar. We know this was Nebuchadnezzar II because this is the start of Daniel's timeline, and we already mapped this. So it says in Jeremiah 29 that 70 years after Nebuchadnezzar takes captives into Babylon, they will call upon the Lord and pray to the Lord, and the Lord will hearken to them. So 70 years after that, Daniel did exactly that. He said in Daniel 9, "In the first year of Darius the son of Ahasuerus, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by the books the number of the years, whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem." And then it says that he started praying and repenting and making confession and talking about how Israel are far off through all the countries. They haven't come back. And so he's saying that the 70 years have passed and the people of Israel have not come back. And he says in verse 16, "Let thy fury be turned away from Jerusalem." Then in verse 21, Gabriel comes to him and gives him the prophecy of 70 weeks, which is different. We all know that. We're not going to go into that in this video. So basically, Jeremiah was told in the first year of Nebuchadnezzar, which is believed to be around 605 BC, that after 70 years, his people would pray and they would be answered. And that's exactly what happened. So 70 years after that, Daniel prayed and received an answer from Gabriel. So Daniel says this occurred in the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, so somewhere around 535 BC. So that was the first fulfillment of Jeremiah's 70 years. And that's the 70 years mentioned in Jeremiah 29. After 70 years, you will pray and I will answer you. Right after that, Cyrus invaded Babylon, which began the second stage of the beast, the first Persian Empire. But there's a second 70-year period in the book of Jeremiah that has not been fulfilled yet. In Jeremiah 25, starting in verse 10, and this is just excerpts, you can pause to read it if you want, but it says basically, "I will take the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the sound of the millstones and the light of the candle. These nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years, and when 70 years are accomplished, I will punish the king of Babylon." Then notice it says, "Take the wine cup of this fury and cause all to drink it. Tread the grapes against all the inhabitants of the earth. A noise shall come even to the ends of the earth. A great whirlwind shall be raised up from the coasts of the earth, and the slain shall be at that day from one end of the earth unto the other end of the earth. They shall not be buried, they shall be dung upon the ground." So it doesn't specify when this 70-year period starts, but it says the nations around Judah will serve Babylon during this 70-year period, and at the end of the 70 years, Babylon will be punished. The bride and bridegroom will be taken. It mentions the sound of the millstone, and it says the slain will lie over the whole earth at that event. It says they will drink the wine cup of fury and tread the grapes. So anybody who has studied Bible prophecy will know immediately that that is not referring to ancient Babylon. It's referring to the destruction of Babylon the Great before Christ's return. So while the first 70 years of Jeremiah were fulfilled during the time of Daniel when the first Persian Empire defeated Babylon, The second 70 years of Jeremiah end at the defeating of Babylon after it has spread to the whole earth. And this event is mentioned from Revelation chapters 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 primarily. So Revelation 14 says, Babylon will fall at the hour of judgment, and at that time all nations will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, and there will be fire and brimstone at that time. And then it says, one sat like unto the Son of Man, and in his hand a sharp sickle. Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. So it's talking about the harvest. Gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And then Revelation 16 tells us this occurs when the seventh vial of plagues is poured out. At that time there will be voices, thunders, lightnings, and a great earthquake. Great Babylon came into remembrance and given the cup of the wine of the fierceness of the wrath. And every island will flee away, and the mountains will not be found. And there will fall upon men great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. So this is no ordinary hailstorm. A talent is a measurement of weight that is equivalent to anywhere from 60 to 130 pounds. So it's telling us here that a plague of hail is coming, and each individual hailstone is going to weigh 60 to 130 pounds. So this is not a weather phenomenon. These are rocks that are falling. This is a meteorite impact. And Revelation 18 confirms that when it says, in 1 hour Babylon will be made desolate. A mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down. The light of the candle shall shine no more, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. So Revelation is giving us more details about the fall of Babylon. It's confirming that it refers to the fall of Babylon that Jeremiah talked about, when the slain will lie unburied over the whole earth. It's when the bride and bridegroom will be taken away at the sound of the millstone. And although it was translated the sound of the millstones, we know that it's referring to the millstone thrown down from heaven, because it says that the sound is a noise that will come even to the ends of the earth. That's in verse 31. So that's saying the bride and the bridegroom will be taken away at the sound of the millstone, and that will occur in 1 hour. At that time, Babylon will drink the wine cup of fury, which we're told is the wrath of God, when fire and brimstone rains down from heaven, when they will tread the grapes or cast them into the great winepress of the wrath of God. We're told there will be a great earthquake, great hail, and the islands will flee away when that great millstone hits the sea. In other words, giant tsunamis that will completely cover the islands. The islands will be gone. So it's really clear that the second 70-year period in the book of Jeremiah is going to end at the destruction of Babylon the Great in the future. We know this is a future event and not a past event because the book of Revelation explains how Babylon the Great fits into the detailed timeline. In Revelation 17, we're told Babylon the Great sits upon the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. We've already covered this in detail. The book of Daniel gave us accurate details about events spanning roughly 2,500 years. And what we're looking at here is how the actual fulfillments have occurred so far, aside from the burning stone, the gathering of the elect, the final 3.5 years, and the end of sins altogether. So to make this easier to understand for people that know Bible prophecy, we're going to look at this in Bible terms right now. And this is really important because the book of Revelation is about to give us an indication of when Jeremiah's 70 years start. But it's a riddle that, as far as I know, no one has solved. So it says in verse 7, I will tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast that carries her. So it's talking about Babylon the Great and the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns that Babylon sits on. It says, the beast that you saw, in other words, the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns in verse 3. So it says, the beast that you saw was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. Okay, so before we look at this, so we're all on the same page. That bottomless pit is mentioned in Revelation 9, and it's talking about the 5th trumpet. But I just have to say this too. The trumpets and vials of wrath occur simultaneously. I have a video on this in the playlist link below, so I don't have time to explain it in this video, but they are simultaneous and they occur in literally 1 hour. The reason they're separated in the text is the vials of wrath refer specifically to what happens to Babylon, but the trumpets occur at the same time, just in a different place on the earth. So again, the Bible says that all 7 of the vials are poured out in literally 1 hour, and that means the trumpets also occur in literally 1 hour because they match. The trumpets and the vials match. So at this point, it really doesn't matter if it's the 5th trumpet or the 7th trumpet or the 5th vial or the 7th vial, because all 7 occur in 1 literal hour. So that's a mystery that not everybody understands. You have to first understand it's talking about a meteorite, and then it makes sense. So Revelation 9 says, "The 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven into the earth, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit." This connects back to the timeline we were given. So Jesus said, after the tribulation of the days, the stars will fall and the sun and moon will go dark. And Revelation 9 tells us the sun goes dark specifically because of the star that falls from heaven and opens the pit. So it's not just a star, but a burning stone. I just can't believe that more Christians are not aware of it, because it is so clear in the text. So now it tells us the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns will ascend out of the bottomless pit. So that means the beast is going to ascend after the star or burning stone hits the earth. And that makes sense because we're told the beast will be allowed to continue for 42 months after that stone hits. We know the final time of trouble starts after the tribulation of 1260 days or years. And Revelation 17 says, after the beast ascends out of the bottomless pit, it will go into perdition. So it does gain power after the meteorite hits, but it will only survive for 3.5 years afterward. That's what we're told, because 42 months equals 3.5 years. Okay, then it says the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, and there are 7 kings. Okay. So the 7 heads of the beast represent both 7 mountains and 7 kings. We know the 7 mountains are the 7 continents on the planet because the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns is the 4th beast mentioned in the book of Daniel. And Daniel tells us this 4th beast is a 4th kingdom that will devour the whole earth. So the 4th beast rules over the whole earth, and Babylon the Great sits on that 4th beast. That means Babylon sits on the whole earth, all 7 continents. So the 7 mountains that Babylon sits on are the 7 continents. Okay, so that tells us where Babylon sits, but the next verse tells us when the meteorite hits, but it's written as a riddle. And like I said, I don't know of anybody else who's solved this riddle. So it says, there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and he's of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Okay, so in order to find the correct answer to this riddle, it's absolutely necessary to solve the timeline in Daniel. And like I said before, I don't know of anybody else who's figured this out. I don't know. Maybe there is somebody out there. I don't know who it is. But the first part of the riddle tells us there are 7 kings. Daniel told us the word king can also refer to the corresponding kingdom. So this can also represent 7 kingdoms that are also heads of the beast. Daniel told us 4 of those heads were the heads of the leopard. So if we add the Babylonian Empire, the Persian Empire, and the Roman Empire, we have a total of 7 kingdoms. But it says 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other is not yet come, and when he comes, he will continue a short space. And the beast is the 8th, but is of the 7. So the 5 that have fallen are the Babylonian Empire, the Persian Empire, the whole Greek Empire, the Western Roman Empire, and the Eastern Roman Empire. That would mean the one that is represents the Holy Roman Empire. And the one that had not yet come at the time of the Holy Roman Empire was the United Nations. Well, like I said, most Christians don't think that. Many scholars, if not most, believe that the one that is refers to the Roman Empire, and the one that shall come is the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire. But that cannot be the case. And I thought this too 3 years ago. You might find some old videos that I had, but please, disregard that, because that's not what it is. The Turkish Empire lasted a very long time. So it cannot be the one that shall come, because it says the one that shall come shall continue a short space. So it can't be the Turkish Empire that lasted a very long time. The Roman Empire was a very, very long reign, and even the individual sections of the Roman Empire, the Western Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, and the Holy Roman Empire were all very long empires. So none of them would qualify as the king that has not yet come. The only one that qualifies is the UN, the United Nations, which rose in its first state as the League of Nations in 1920. It's the king of fierce countenance, the one that destroys by peace. And by the way, they created the little horn. So things did not play out exactly the way people thought it would. It's just slightly different. The king of fierce countenance is not the little horn, and it doesn't say that in Daniel 8. It was an implication, but it doesn't say that. So what ended up happening was the king of fierce countenance created the little horn, okay? So this means that the one that is must refer to the Holy Roman Empire. It does not say that the king that is the kingdom that was ruling while John was writing the book of Revelation. I know a lot of Christians think that's what it means, but it doesn't say that. It just says the one that is. And right before that, it tells us the beast that was, is not, yet is. So first we need to understand that, because it's talking about the Holy Roman Empire there. The Holy Roman Empire was dissolved in 1806 by Emperor Francis. But the book of Daniel and Revelation tell us that the seventh head of the beast will be wounded as though it's dead, but then the wounded head will be healed. And again, the head represents a kingdom, and that kingdom was the Holy Roman Empire, which was the seventh head, which was wounded and came back to life. The Vatican was restored in 1929. So that's how we know that the one that is refers to the Holy Roman Empire. It was the wounded head. Okay, so let's go over this again, because I really want people to understand that this really could happen now, literally any day, because we are literally right in the thick of it right now. Okay, so there are 7 kings who represent the 7 heads of the beast, the 4 heads of the leopard, plus Babylon, Persia, and Rome. But you have to look at this a different way to find the 5 that have fallen. The 5 that had fallen were Babylon, Persia, Greece, the Western Roman Empire, and the Eastern Roman Empire. The one that is represents the Holy Roman Empire, and the one that has not yet come was the United Nations, the world empire. And it says, and when he comes, he shall continue a short space. So the UN, it's saying, will continue only a short time. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7. So first of all, it tells us the beast that was and is not is the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. So it's the whole beast. And we're told that Babylon represents the mouth of that beast, and Persia represents the feet of that beast. So the 4 heads of the leopard combined with 3 Roman kingdoms equals 7 heads of the beast, and the UN is the 8th king. So again, you have to look at this 3 different ways in order to solve the riddles. It's not meant, and it was never meant, to be understood by the wicked. That's why none of the wolves in sheep's clothing ever figured it out. The riddle is solved. No one knows it, but it is solved. And the standard Christian doctrine about these 7 kings is false. It's not even logically valid. The 8th king is the United Nations, and it is the beast that will go into perdition that will only continue for a short space. Okay, and as far as the 10 horns, there are others who found the 10 horns decades ago. The 10 sections of the world that the UN has appointed, those were the 10 horns. They also represent the 10 toes, so they don't come up until the end. And they're here now. They were appointed in the 70s. But notice verse 12 says the 10 kings will only have power for 1 hour. The hour of judgment is when the meteorite hits. So this may be telling us, and I mean this is just speculation, but it may be telling us that the 10 kings will gain their power along with the beast at that impact, and that their power will only last during the chaos of that meteorite. But we are told they're the ones that will burn Babylon. And Zechariah tells us that the burning is caused by the nuclear missiles that are in their land. So it sounds like meltdown, but we can't be sure. But we already know who the 10 kings are, and the 7 heads represent both the 7 kings and the 7 mountains. And the mountains are the 7 continents where both the UN has devoured the whole earth and where Babylon sits. So I hope you're following me here because this is huge and it points to 2015 in a huge way. Jeremiah says Babylon will be destroyed at the end of 70 years, and Revelation tells us Babylon sits on the beast with 10 horns. Again, the 10 horns did not arise until the feet. In other words, the 10 horns did not arise until the 8th king, which is the UN. So that means that Babylon was not sitting on the beast with 10 horns until the beast with 10 horns was created. In other words, the nations that will serve Babylon in the end for 70 years will be serving Babylon that sits on the beast with 10 horns, and that beast did not arise until 1945. The UN was created in 1945, and 70 years from 1945 is 2015. So again, Jeremiah says the nations around Judah, which, by the way, that's where the little horn is. The king of the north came in and took over that land at the end of the Ottoman Empire, just as it said in the book of Daniel. That Ottoman Empire was the Turkish Empire. It was that 4th head of the leopard. And Daniel said, in the latter time of their kingdom, a king of fierce countenance will rise up in the latter time and destroy by peace. That was the League of Nations that rose up in 1920 at the very end of that Ottoman Empire. That king of the north took over the land around Jerusalem that was under Ottoman rule. They came in, they took over, and that was specifically Russia, France, and England. They came in and took over that region. Israel was international territory. Then 2 men, one from France, one from Britain, they actually originated the United Nations in the very beginning. So it was literally someone from France and Britain that created the United Nations. And in 1945, when the United Nations was created, 3 years later, they made that international territory there around Jerusalem, turned that into the country of Israel. And that's the little horn. Okay, and everybody's worshiping it right now. They have no idea what they're doing. That's why I'm trying to tell people. There's a reason why Jesus said those claiming to be Jews are not Jews. And this is not an attack on this isn't about Jews. This is about the country of Israel that was created by France and Britain. There's a lot of Jews out there that know the truth. This has nothing to do with that. This has to do with the United Nations. They created the country of Israel. It is not the true Israel in the Bible, okay? So I'm not attacking anybody here, but you got to realize if you're worshiping Israel, you're worshiping the beast. You're worshiping the UN. You're not worshiping God's people if you're doing that. I'm sorry. I got to tell you that. I have to tell you that because it's a truth. True Israel, Jesus said, will be over the whole earth. It's not that country in the Middle East. So the UN was created in 1945, and 70 years from 1945 is 2015. And again, Jeremiah says the nations around Judah will serve Babylon for 70 years. That's because they took over the whole region in the end of days. Just recently, just a little over 70 years ago. And they built their whole empire starting exactly 70 years ago. And then it says, the nations around Judah will serve Babylon for 70 years, and at the end of that 70 years, the slain will lie unburied over the whole earth. Because Babylon covers the whole earth. That's why Jeremiah says that. Because Babylon sits on the beast who has devoured the whole earth, all 7 continents. And again, Babylon could not sit on the beast with 10 horns until the 8th king. Because the 8th king is the one that creates the 10 horns. You see what I'm saying? So the only time the 70 years of Jeremiah could have happened, having to do with Babylon the Great, the only time that could happen is during the 8th king, the reign of the 8th king, and that 8th king rose up in 1945. So we are literally right now under the rule of the 8th king. The fall of 2015 is exactly 70 years from the rise of that 8th king. It is exactly 1,260 years from when the Vatican first gained its governmental power. The fall of 2015 is exactly 1 generation from the sprouting forth of the fig tree Israel in the spring of 1948, according to the book of Matthew itself. And we're not only in the 8th king, the United Nations is literally in their 8th Secretary General right now. The Vatican is also in their 8th Pope, since the Lateran Treaty made the popes kings of their own country. And the 2 false witnesses are already walking the earth and worshiping the beast. And that's just the truth. But there's more to this. We're told the meteorite represents the harvest. Revelation 14 tells us the wrath, the fire and brimstone is also the time of the harvest. Jeremiah 50 tells us, cut off the sower from Babylon in the time of harvest. And chapter 51 says, the daughter of Babylon, the time of her harvest is come. Okay, but look at this. If you search the word harvest in Jeremiah, each verse reads like it was meant to be read this way. Like it was meant to be read by somebody who was doing a word search. I mean, it's bizarre. So it says, in his season, he reserved unto us the appointed weeks of the harvest. Okay, so look, I've said this before. I know no one believes me, but the appointed times of the 1st and 7th month match because the appointed times are meant to be observed by both the southern and northern hemispheres. So right now in the southern hemisphere, it's springtime, and they are in their appointed time of weeks right now. Because remember, the calendar starts in the spring. But in the southern and northern hemispheres, they're having spring at opposite times of the year. That's why the 1st and 7th month match. So in the southern hemisphere, they're in their spring right now, and their observance of second Passover this year lands on Thanksgiving Day. And their Shavuot wheat harvest window will occur December 15th through the 17th. So it says, in his season he appointed unto us the appointed weeks of the harvest. Then it says, get this. The harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. I mean, see, that is really something right there. And I know a lot of naysayers are going to come by and go, oh, whatever, it doesn't mean anything, blah, blah. Okay, but no, it does. And the reason is, well, first of all, obviously whoever wrote this knew what was going to happen. They do know the exact season, the exact date, even though we can't know the date. But that generation, the fig tree generation, it ended in the summer. Remember that? So it was technically September, but it was still the summer season because it was before September 21st. So he said, don't count the days. So we just look at the month. So we look at the month and we're like, that's the month of September. That's the start of the fall season. But the point is, though, I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, that end of the generation, the fig tree generation in the book of Matthew itself, the maximum length of the generation ending this summer was huge. So the fact that it's saying the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we're not saved, that seems really, because that generation of the fig tree, it ended in the summertime. Then it says, the carcasses of men shall fall as dung after the harvest man. Sounds so bad. I know that sounds really bad. Like, how could you hope for that? I don't hope for that, okay? I hope everybody gets saved. If you're one of the bride or the bridegroom, then it says you're going to be taken out. But it says here, basically, that Babylon's going to fall after the harvest man. So It's telling us that Babylon will fall at the time of the harvest. In other words, the season of harvest. But after the harvest, man. In other words, it sounds like it's telling us that the event is going to happen in late fall. That's what it sounds like to me. Okay, there's something else to this too that I want to share with you. The prophecy of Jeremiah's 70 years involves studying the time period from Jeremiah to Daniel. And Daniel told us that the first 70-year period ended during the reign of the son of Ahasuerus. That connects back to the book of Esther, because in Esther 2, we're told when the wrath of the king Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done. Okay, Vashti was the queen, right? Revelation 18 says, Babylon the Great is fallen, the wine of the wrath. God hath remembered her iniquities, for she saith in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow. So Vashti represents the queen Babylon, and Esther represents the bride. And here's the key. It tells us Esther will be taken in the 10th month in the 7th year of the king's reign. And it talks about the 127 provinces and the red, white, and blue and all this. And it just sounds like maybe it's pointing to Obama's 7th year. Because it's clearly referencing Babylon the Great. I mean, Vashti represents Babylon the Great. That's clear, because there are other things. Jesus talked about the parable of a certain king who made a feast and all of that. So, I mean, it is clear that Vashti represents Babylon and Esther represents the bride. We are right now in the 7th year of Obama's presidency. Obama is the one called Messiah, as appears to be the case, because everything that happened fit perfectly into the Daniel 9 prophecy. So it appears that Obama was the one called Messiah. Everyone was calling him Messiah, so that makes perfect sense. So it would make sense then that the 7th year of the king might refer to Obama's 7th year, because it appears that we just entered the 7th year of the week of Daniel. And the thing is, Obama's 7th year will end in January because his 8th year starts on January 20th. But what's interesting about the fall season right here in November and December of 2015 is that it is the only time that the 10th month, the month called Tebet, will occur in the 7th year of both Daniel's week and Obama's presidency. So right now in November and December, and also part of January, it is both the 7th year of Daniel's week and the 7th year of Obama's presidency. So the 10th month, the month called Tebet, will start on the standard calendar on December 11th. The ancient 10th month of Tebet will start on January 10th, but the 7th year of the king will end on January 19th. So the man called Messiah, Obama, will start his 8th year on January 20th, 2016. That means we enter an extremely high watch on December 11th until January 19th. And as far as I'm concerned, we're already in that high watch right now. I mean, Thanksgiving is another one. So I'm not trying to say I know the day or the hour or anything like that. I'm pointing out some really, really major events that are lining up right now. And this has never happened any of the other years, any other season ever. It's never happened like this before. And sure, we've had things line up before, but nothing this major. I mean, these are major events. The end of the 1260 years, that's huge. The end of Jeremiah's 70 years, I don't think you can get more huge than that. The end of the fig tree generation in Matthew 24, those are the biggest things. I mean, I don't know of anything that's bigger than that. The 400 years of affliction, that's the other thing. If the affliction started in 1619, and I know people disagree with that, and I don't care, because I believe it. If it started in 1619, then 400 years later would be 2019. But the affliction has to end by 2019. That means the final time of trouble would have to be before that. So 3.5 years before 2019 is 2015 or 2016. So I just can't get over it. Jesus said, you pray your flight is not in the winter. And this year, the fig tree generation, as it appears to be right now, ends in the fall season of 2015. So by December 21st to the 23rd, that fall season will pass. And also the fig tree generation with it. And remember in that other video where we were going over the actual length of the generation and we were trying to find it and we were calculating the years from Abraham to David and we were looking at Kohath? Remember the 70 descendants of Jacob? When Jacob entered Egypt, there were 70 of his descendants with him, and Kohath was the 15th of those 70. Think about that Kohath is the key to the whole length of the generation. The generation is ending in 2015, and the 70 years are ending in 2015. So I'm not saying for sure, no one knows, but I've never seen this many extremely important parts of the prophecy line up like this in one season. So I just wanted to let you know. For more information, you can watch the playlist Bible's Countdown to the Meteorite and Rescue, which I linked below this video on YouTube. I just want to say thank you so much to those who are supporting this work. I hope you have a good holiday, and I'll talk to you after Thanksgiving.